The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Welcome to the 15-Point Plan. My name is Chad Himes, and we are here moving you through the 15 points. And today, as we talk about learning, I get to be joined by the knowledgeable Jillene Snell. Hey, Jillene.
Hey, Chad. I wonder why you picked that one for the introduction today.
I think it fits appropriately with our topic today. Jillene, we're moving through the 15-Point Plan. As people have been taking these podcast episodes, they've been hearing us take them through each point to help them generate more energy in their life, have better health, better mindset that they need to get out of any rut they might be in. And today, we're here to talk about learning, purposeful learning.
And I think learning could be one of the best ways to get out of a rut.
Absolutely. Jillene, let's talk about learning. Why should people even invest in learning?
Well, I think there's a lot that holds people back from investing in their knowledge and that they're learning every single day. I mean, we just get too busy and time gets more and more scarce as time goes by.
Sure.
And so we think, gosh, if we're going to cut something, sometimes learning is the very first thing that we cut. So what we want to show in this podcast today is why learn. And the benefits are, they're there. The proof is in the benefits. And some of those are choosing something to improve at so that you can feel like you've achieved something.
Okay.
For instance, I never used to cook. I cook now and I feel like, gosh, I learned something. I followed the recipe. I took that class. And now I feel like I've reached this small level of achievement, right?
And I hope you've listened to our nutrition episode so that you're cooking properly.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
We got to stay on the healthy train here.
Give me another one.
It allows you to gain new experiences.
Of course.
I think new experiences just keep your mind open in the world. And I think with some of our world experiences more recently in the past years, we tend to be a little bit more confined mentally. We just want to expand that a little bit.
Okay.
Keep neural pathways active, and that's part of that expansion.
Yep.
We want to expand mentally, not physically, some of us. Train our brain to handle challenges and find solutions. Chad, you put this in here.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's actually one of the things that we run into all the time is a new challenge. And the more we're learning, Jillene, the more we're training our brain to be able to learn how to solve a problem. We'll get into one of those situations that we've never been in before, but because we've learned this, we've learned that, and we've learned the other thing, we're able to figure out what to do in this new unknown situation we find ourselves in.
Absolutely. So truly, it might equip us for a challenge we don't even know is coming.
Correct.
Right?
You know, and then Jillene, one of the other reasons that we would want to learn, well, you never know when you're going to get the invitation to be on Jeopardy. Right? You never know when it's going to happen, or you end up at a bar one night and it's trivia night. You got to be ready to be able to play. So it was interesting as we were working on this, you decided to quote our fourth president. Meanwhile, I was deciding to quote our 33rd president. Interesting, we both went to former presidents on this. Tell us, the fourth president, which if we learned anything, we know is James Madison.
Yeah, we'll learn that today if we didn't know. Well, James said, knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power that knowledge gives.
Say it again for everybody.
All right. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power that knowledge gives. And I really love that because, I mean, ignorance is a sensitive word in general.
Sure.
But it does play out and manifest in different ways in our world, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think he would, a previous president, this is very good knowledge for us.
Yeah, and I quoted the 33rd president. That would be Harry S. Truman, for anybody who wanted to learn that today here on our podcast. And you've probably heard this quote. You just didn't know it was Harry S. Truman who said it, and that is, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. Okay, so folks, let's make sure we remember that. Jillene, you've got this interesting concept about learning that you wanted to share with our audience. You were pretty strong as we were talking before this one.
Yeah, it's a great example that James Clear referenced. He's an author that writes Atomic Habits and an amazing blog that he puts out every single week. And he said, we've got to put gas in the car to drive it around. Duh, right? But reading is putting gas in the car. And driving it around is the wisdom we've built to use it in daily life. And so what I was thinking is like, oftentimes we're learning and we're reading because we have to. Maybe we're getting our bachelor's degree or master's degree, or we're reading because we need to learn something for our jobs, and it's imperative. Like, we absolutely have to. Maybe the boss asked us or whatever.
Sure, maybe our teacher asked. We're still in school. Right.
Exactly. And so, but what I think we miss is these other aspects of our life that are being a coworker. And maybe we, our coworker depends on us for their job to be successful and to be a team player and to learn how to finesse that, or to be a parent. Because we are the teachers for our children. But how much time do we invest in learning to be a great parent? What are we reading? What podcasts are we listening to? What friends are we talking to that we admire their parenting style and want to model after that? And, if you're a boss, you're a mentor for your employees. Like, you might be one of their only mentors. And as a boss, I take that seriously. So if I'm not putting gas in my car, I can't bring them what they need in order to help them to be on a development path.
So
both
we're not
personally
saying,
and development and in business.
Well, we're not saying that we're here to learn to teach them. We're here to learn to be the best us we can be.
Absolutely.
So we're wanting to be a better parent. Not so that we can teach our kids things in this situation. It's to be the best parent. We're not wanting to, it's not here that we're talking about teaching our coworkers. It's we want to be the best teammate. We want to be the best coworker, that we're learning how to take those things on.
I certainly think that's the starting point, is we need to model the behavior, but I disagree with you a little bit. I do think that there's a space for teaching.
Of course.
Maybe not preaching.
Nope.
Not on your soapbox, but actually teaching in a way that people can learn. And we'll talk about the different learning styles too.
Absolutely. I think the teaching just happens to fall under service, which is one of the other 15 points, because here we're learning about us, not the teaching part. I don't want our audience out there to say, okay, as long as I told someone how to do something today, I learned. That's not us learning.
I see that perspective.
There you go. Okay. So what we want to make sure you're aware of is, think about the areas of your life that you might need to learn something in, is what Jillene's talking about here. Maybe you are a parent. Maybe you're a newlywed and you need to be the best spouse possible. Maybe you're whatever it is, you are a boss. You are in some position that you need to learn how to be better at what it is. I will warn every new parent out there or expecting parent, don't ever read What to Expect When Expecting. Flat out the scariest book I've ever read in my life. Don't go there for your learning.
Instead, you should read the book that Chad wrote for kids, which is
that's sweet,
very
but that's
cool.
not going to teach you anything about being a parent. That's just going to keep your kids having a good bedtime story. All right, Jillene, I love stats. For my personality, it's not my thing to track stats, but I love finding stats. There are some really interesting stats that we found when we were looking up some stats about learning. So the first one just blew me away. Only 23% of Americans, well, I should say only, right? 23% of Americans admit to not reading a book in the past 12 months. And this is up from 18% according to the Pew Research Center.
Why do you think that is?
And this information had nothing to do with 2020. This was 2019 information released in 2020. So it's got nothing to do with the COVID situation we've dealt with. It's just 23% of Americans haven't even read a book in the last 12 months.
So stats are saying that the average amount of Americans are reading less than before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Less than before. Okay. The younger we are, the more we read. Now, you were thinking, well, that might just be because we're in formal education. We have to read. Our teachers, our bosses, or whatever are making us read as we're growing. This next one, Jillene, the average person reads 12 books per year. Now, 23% admit to not reading any book, yet the average person reads 12 books a year. But you were doing some research on top of that number, and you found what?
Well, you hear about Warren Buffett, and I think he reads almost all day.
Yeah.
But I like Bill Gates' example because I feel like it's more sustainable. He reads one book a week.
Okay.
And he has from when he was, in grade school.
Right.
So it's something that he made a habit, and it's part of his own 15-point plan that's customized, right?
Yep. So average CEOs, like Bill Gates, even though he's far from average in any way, are reading 50 to 60 books a year.
Right.
Pretty amazing, right? This is where it started to get scary. Jillene, 33% of high school grads never read another book.
Well, I had to laugh at that because I just think, they're forced to do these things. And the moment they have their freedom, they're thinking, gosh, I don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly.
And then that in itself, that freedom can become a habit.
Yes.
And this is where I think actually demonstrating for our kids and people around us what good learning and reading looks like, we can help this audience right here.
Yeah, and 42% of college grads never read another book. So they get out of college, they've had to read a few more. A few more of them might stop reading because they're sick and tired of all the reading they've done. I thought this was interesting that audiobooks are up from 14% of Americans listening to them in 2016 to 18% in 2018. Still waiting on some new stats on that. 29% of readers use a combination of audiobook and physical book. 39%, though, want physical books in their hand. The majority of people still want physical books. All right, Jillene, there are 4 learning styles, and we have only a few moments left on this podcast. So we're going to dive into them deep when we get the opportunity, but let's briefly talk about the 4 learning styles that are out there. The first one?
It's visual.
Okay, and the obvious definition on that, right? Visual learners learn from seeing things. Give me some examples, Jillene, of how a visual learner will learn best.
Well, I think the first one is, like you said, the last stat that you mentioned, which is physical books. That is visual. You're reading off of a piece of paper, and maybe it's got some diagrams in there as well that help you with the visual aid. But some fun ones would be, YouTube TED Talks, for example.
Yeah.
Of course, YouTube's got all sorts of good content if you filter through the junk and you find the good stuff, or you follow that good channel, right? Like the TED Talks, and they have an abbreviated version of that channel too on YouTube, which is great. And then TV documentaries. There's one on Apple that I love. It's called Earth at Night, and it's amazing. And it's one of my favorites. I don't know if you can even call it a documentary, but you learn a lot in it about our Earth.
I like the ones about the planet, all those planet ones that they're doing, because they're gorgeous to watch while learning about these ridiculous things that we learn.
Aerial America. They give you so many little nuggets about each town in that state, which is pretty cool.
But you're watching, so that's a visual learner.
It's visual, and then maybe training videos that you find online.
Okay.
And then I know you researched a place you can go to actually do that.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that one because they also fall into another category as well. Let's talk about the second form of learning that's out there, and that's auditory. Jillene, give me a quick definition of an auditory learner.
Well, that's an easy one. Podcasts, Audible, anything that you can hear, maybe even attending a conference.
Okay. So they're listening to things. Auditory learners like to hear people talk to them or like to listen to those audio books.
Sure. And it's one of my favorites. I'm listening to 2 to 3 podcasts per day, and I do it when I'm doing my makeup. I'll talk about how I built that habit later, but it can be great for people who have a hard time managing their time and learning. While doing it.
Learning type 3. This is the newer learning type. I'm putting air quotes around that as they have added this learning type. And Jillene, that would be?
It's reading and writing.
Yep.
So you know that person. I actually work with that person here in my office. Her name is Olivia. And every time we attend the same class, she comes out with the entire journals full of notes. And I've got like an Apple note that's got 3 lines.
Yep.
Right? But that's her learning style, and she does great with it.
Okay, so she's going to write everything, and she's going to reread what she's written. She's going to be taking a lot of notes. That's a reading and writing person.
It truly works for her. I mean, she goes and she implements it. So I think it's your learning style when you see it play out in your life, like Olivia.
Okay. And then the fourth learning style, Jillene, is?
Kinesthetic.
Now define kinesthetic for us.
I just threw like a fake ball at you right now.
I was supposed to catch that? Got it? Okay.
So it's movement, it's real life experience. And so speaking of experience, Chad, a really cool way you can learn experientially is through Airbnb has this section of their business called online experiences. And that's where you can hire someone to teach you magic tricks, for example, to teach you how to cook paella. We just did that, last week.
Okay. But
they're actually watching you do it and then giving you feedback on what you're doing. So it's very hands-on learning.
Got it. And takelessons.com was the other one that we were talking about earlier. They have online classes and they have those live learning music, learning languages where an instructor is actually teaching you sign language and watching you and giving you feedback or something along those lines.
Right.
Going on a tour, that type of thing. Okay, Jillene. So here's my thing about learning. If a shark stops swimming, it dies. Did you know that? And
this is a fun fact we get to learn today.
There you go. And sharks can only go forward. That's another little lesson for you.
Not backwards.
They do not swim backwards. If a shark stops swimming, it'll die. And they only swim forward. And if we, like a shark, stop learning and stop growing in that regard, the same thing starts to happen to our brain function. We start dying. We start moving in the wrong direction when it comes to it. All right, Jillene. Our listeners are going through the 15-point plan. They've gone to 15pointplan.com and they've downloaded the tracker, or they've built their own, which we're going to talk about on a future episode. Okay. How do they earn their check mark for this learning box?
You can earn your check mark by simply dedicating any period of time every single day, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 or an hour, to learning purposefully, so that you don't just accidentally fall into something. You've got that dedicated time, and maybe you have that habit that, hey, after I take a shower, I will sit down and read for 10 minutes. And so that's one of the best ways to do it, and we'll talk about more ways to do that in our future episode. But just that purposeful time every single day.
All right, Jillene, before we get out of here, I got a question for you.
What's that?
What's your learning style?
So, Chad, you actually gave me a profile to take, right?
Yes.
To find out what it is. And they said that I'm a mild kinesthetic learner.
All right, so we're going to challenge each and every one of you. Go online. We're not going to give you a specific website. There are so many out there. You can just put learning style assessment into your Google bar, and it'll give you back tons of different ones. You'll find out whether you are visual, auditory, reading, writing, or kinesthetic.
Which one are you?
Me, I'm a visual learner. I'm not going to take notes. I'm going to sit there and just watch. I will have some kinesthetic in it because I want to dive in and get my hands dirty as I'm doing it sometimes. Here's the thing. We want you to then jump into our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/win-make-give. And we want you to come tell us what's your learning style. We're going to be asking. If you're auditory, keep listening. If you're one of the other ways, make sure you're joining us on Facebook, as well as keep listening to all of our future episodes as we keep taking you through the 15-point plans. And we hope that this episode ups your energy and takes you to the next level.